Hey everybody, Chris Ray here. So if you follow Halo news or Xbox One news in general, you're probably aware of Halo 5 and how the beta came and went. And I have a lot of opinions on it, especially as somebody who's been a longtime fan of the franchise. Before we continue though, I'd like to clarify that I did have a version of this video written down. I had a scripted version of this video that I could not do. My throat is killing me, my voice hurts, and I'm not sure why. Yeah, just putting that out there, this is not nearly as scripted and as pre-planned as I would have liked it to be. But, you know, fuck it. Let's have fun. Let's just talk about gameplay first, since it is the crux of the experience. It is a multiplayer beta. There is no story whatsoever to it, and the game isn't graphically finished, although I will comment on that a little later. Gameplay. The first things people are going to notice, especially if they're fans of Halo and have been for a long time, are the Spartan abilities. Now, obviously, if you're caught up, you know that these are passive abilities that every player has access to at any given moment. It's not like Halo Reach's armor ability system where you had to pick and choose which one you were going to get, and you didn't know which one of your teammates had which armor ability or which one of your enemies had which armor. Everybody has the same abilities. There's no ability that another player has that another player doesn't. It's all equal. And personally, I think this is a right step. I think this is a good step. I think this is a step in the right direction for the franchise because, quite frankly, one of the greatest things about Halo multiplayer is equal starts, is being on equal footing, knowing that when you get into a fight with somebody, they didn't get the drop on you because they had something in game that you didn't. You know, it's fair and it promotes skill. Like the skilled players are going to win, and I do like that. So I mean, I don't really have much to say about that. I think it's a good implementation. I think, especially considering now that they've gotten rid of Halo 4's abysmal loadout system, and they're going back to equal starts for weapons as well, I think this is going to be a much better game than Halo 4. In fact, I think it's going to be more Halo than Halo 4 ever was. So I don't really have too much to say about the abilities. I think they're pretty well implemented. Although the biggest issue I do have is with Smart Scope, which is essentially 343's way of saying aim-down sights. Now, aim-down sights has never been a thing in any Halo game before, ever. Historically, Halo has always been an arena shooter. It's not about aiming down sights, it's about having your weapon ready at all times, ready to get into the action whenever. It's a slower game, obviously, Halo, but, you know, you were always ready, you were always combat ready. There was never a thing that you were doing that prevented you from firing, aside from reloading or maybe meleeing. Aim-down sights is kind of not great. It's not terrible. I don't really have a problem with, you know, the function of it. I don't have a problem with aiming down sights, tightening the spread of bullets. In fact, I think that's entirely fine. What I have a problem with is the animation. The animation of bringing your gun up to your eye to look through it feels kind of intrusive. It feels a little bit of a step back. Like, why would a future soldier who's had access to a smart scope in every single other Halo game that's zoomed instantaneously, why would he all of a sudden go back to a weapon that he had to aim down sights with? It doesn't quite make sense in the same way that the zoom did in the other Halo games. But again, it's implemented fairly well. But I am curious whether or not it was necessary at all to put it in. Sprint is another thing, and while I don't object to sprint entirely, I do wonder how necessary it actually is. It's well implemented, especially since, you know, it's tied to your shield recharge time. But again, I'm not really convinced it needs to be there. I believe that there was a quote from somebody at 343 explaining why sprint was there, and it's because the market expects sprint and aim down sights from an FPS. If you don't have that in an FPS, then people won't buy it. It's like, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think not having sprint and not having aim down sights, in a way, kind of makes you stand separate. It makes you stand out. But, you know, that's just my opinion. I don't have a problem with sprint. I think it's fairly fine. But, you know, sprinting, of course, means that the combat is much faster paced than any other Halo game. This is definitely the fastest game in the franchise, without a doubt. You know, everything is increased. The speed of everything is increased, and that would be fine if it were not for the openness of the maps combined with the time to kill. I feel weak in this game. The time to kill is too fast. I don't feel like a badass in Spartan armor. I don't feel like a super soldier. I feel like a feather. And Halo's always been about long engagements. If a player shoots you first, you have a chance to outgun him if you were quick and accurate enough. If you were skilled enough at using the map geometry to your advantage, you could get away from him without needing to sprint. And although it is possible in Halo 5 to perform reversals, it's possible to kill people if they shoot you first, it feels a lot harder than it did before. It feels a lot more uncommon than it did before, and I think that's something that is worth noting. And, barring the fact that the controls take a little bit of getting used to, the game plays fairly well, aside from how frustrating it is. And granted, it's a beta, so I'm willing to advertise that caveat. But the learning curve, to me, feels tremendous. The aiming is unforgiving, and the time to kill is far too short. Even so, it is fun. It's just super, super frustrating. Graphics are another thing entirely. In my honest opinion, the game looks incredibly dated. And again, that could be the fact that it's a beta. It is a beta. It is a full year out from release. Clearly, the assets are not finished. The game was running at a lower resolution during the beta than it will run at launch. But honestly, I didn't get the feeling that it was a next-gen game. Some specific environments look fan-freaking-tastic. Some of them look like, wow, that's really amazing. But others look like they're straight out of a Unity engine. And it's an odd discrepancy. But again, I'll chalk this up to it being a beta. Speaking of graphics, I think it's worth talking about aesthetics, because, I mean, that's more important, if not just as important, as the graphics themselves. And if I'm honest, as a longtime Halo fan, as a longtime fan of the franchise, I'm not really a fan of where 343 is taking it, aesthetically speaking. The Spartan armor looks far too anime, it looks far too Power Ranger. The character models are far too difficult to spot in shaded environments. Sometimes lighting interferes with gameplay, which in a competitive FPS is a no-go. The art direction in general just doesn't feel right. Like when I look at Halo 4 and compare it to Halo 3, I can see immediately that everything looks far too busy. There's too much detail in the Spartan armor, there's too much unnecessary contours and curves in certain maps, in certain structures, in certain bits of geometry. Everything feels too busy. And it reminds me, honestly, more of Vanquished than it does of Halo, and it's a shame given how Halo has managed to stand out without all of this unnecessary noise, without all of this unnecessary detail. Halo 2 Anniversary showed that Bungie's designs were perfect. A new coat of paint over those weapons, a new coat of paint over those environments, made them feel fresh. But the weapons designed by 343 in-house all seem uninspired. The Prophet's Bane looks silly. The new rocket launcher looks like any rocket launcher in any other ordinary modern military shooter. Why replace the classic rocket launcher design that stood out and felt so unique, and replace it with something that I wouldn't be able to distinguish from a Call of Duty weapon? Why have this awkward, super bro-ish intro and outro animation to each match that feels entirely out of place? There are just certain things in Halo 5 that don't feel like Halo at all. There are just certain things that just don't match the feeling of the game, that don't match the tone of the game, that belong somewhere else. Which I feel like Halo 5 is just going to run into a really strange problem, where it's going to be a fairly well-designed gameplay experience, surrounded by these weird, off-putting visual designs and off-putting tonal shifts. It's a bit of a shame, really, because I think this game could end up being one of the best Halo games in the series. I really do think if they increase the time to kill, if they maybe tighten up the controls a little bit, maybe get rid of some of the unnecessary overcomplication of the controls, I think we've got a really great game on our hands. But it's all marred. It's all marred by the fact that there's these awkward animations for the intro to matches and just different stuff like that just doesn't feel like it's necessary. Even so, I can say that as a Halo fan, I think it's going in the right direction as far as gameplay goes. It's fresh, but familiar, which is exactly what Halo 4 did not get right. Now, having said all that, I do think it's super important to note that while the Master Chief Collection is in a better state than it was during launch, it is still a broken game, and 343 is responsible for that broken game. So if you're looking at this video as some kind of endorsement to pre-order Halo 5, do not pre-order it. Do not pre-order it. Wait. Wait after the reviews. wait a couple days. I will get it. I will get it on day one, and I will tell you. I will show you as much gameplay as I possibly can, and I will give you my thoughts on it when it comes out. But please do not pre-order it. Do not reward 343. They're doing a great job, and I commend the people at 343 who are really taking these things seriously, who are really kind of saying, like, you know, we're adding patches, we're patching the game, and we're building this great Halo 5. We're building this great next gen game for you that's coming out later this year. I commend them entirely for that. But as a business, it's important that you do not reward what they did with the Master Chief Collection. I'm just putting that out there. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I'm just suggesting that maybe hold off on pre-ordering it, wait a couple days, and then get it. That's all I'm going to say. Halo 5 is shaping up to be a great game, but there's always the possibility that it might end up dead on arrival. So just keep that in mind. I'm Chris Ray, and I will see you next time. Monday live stream is coming this coming Monday, obviously. February, February, really? Oh, shit. February 2nd at 3:30 p.m. I will be answering questions live. So, yeah, that'll be that. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Target in the trench. Watch the snipes. Enemy hit.